I'm going to offer one solution to how we pay for welfare. There are many solutions. A strong economy would be awfully nice, but let's take the state of the economy as given. And I want to start off by frightening you a little bit. When the OBR look at the future, they do a range of scenarios about the ageing of the population, and their central assumptions are mildly scary. But they have an older age scenario, and under their older age scenario, we will, in a generation, have over the age of 100, 1 million people. And the pension age in that scenario, based on 2/3 of your adult life in work and 1/3 in retirement, will be 74. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating that as such, but that's part of the range of scenarios that we're heading towards. And if you think about the future of the welfare state in a generation, there are 4 headline costs that we will have to meet, all of which are unfunded. So we will have the state pension, which despite the fiction of the National Insurance Fund is unfunded. There is no fund, it is not funded. We'll have public service pensions, teachers, nurses, civil servants and so on, all entirely unfunded. We will have the NHS, no money put aside, and we will have social care. The divisions between these things are rather grey, but 4 huge items of public spending, none of which are in any meaningful sense pre-funded. So how are we going to pay for that welfare state, a scenario where we may not have 1 million people over 100, but where the world will just look unimaginably different from the one we've been used to? And I've written a little, just a few words in the brochure today, highlighting one aspect of this, which is the whole issue of when we stop working. And it was, when I was the pensions minister, it was a real Cinderella of the job I did. Pensions was serious people's work and had numbers attached to it and billions of pounds and so on. But the business of just getting people to work a bit longer was, if you can fit it in. And my contention today is this is absolutely fundamentally central, and that this isn't draconian, forcing people to work until they drop. It's also humane, in the sense that if you can enable people to work and fulfil their potential and do something satisfying and rewarding and remunerative, that is an awful lot better than the alternative. Because the alternative at the moment is what we do with many people is we work them into the ground doing jobs that you couldn't conceive of doing even into your late 60s, let alone your 70s. They are then pretty much unfit to do pretty much anything else. They end up on sickness benefit, that's no good for them, it's no good for the economy, and then you end up paying out rather than receiving in for a generation. That's not in anybody's interest. And so, just to give an example of where we might be heading with all of this, the DWP are doing a review of state pension age at the moment. There is this principle, 2/3 of your adult life in work, 1/3 in retirement. And what they're looking at is the age at which we stop, not reach state pension age, but stop working. And just to give you an example of how this has changed, my now late mother-in-law was a nurse, and she drew her NHS pension at 55. She sadly died recently at 93. So she spent more of her life drawing in an NHS pension than she did working. Now, getting from here to there is an incredibly difficult thing. Raising public service pension ages to link with the state pension age is an important part of this. But Paul Johnson, my colleague who's speaking to you shortly, has highlighted the fact that the rates of participation we have amongst older workers now haven't even got back to where they were at the start of the 1970s. So someone like me says something like this, and everyone says, this is unrealistic, we can't go on doing these jobs any longer, this is draconian stuff. And in fact, what we're doing is hugely wasting a huge amount of people's potential. And so my argument would be how we pay for the welfare state is harnessing the skills of older workers, changing the attitudes of employers to older workers, and making older workers the ones you want to recruit, retain and retrain. For example, we experimented with something called the midlife career review in the last Parliament. Now, as an ex-MP who lost my seat at 51, the electorate forced a midlife career review on me. But the basic idea that you don't get to the point where you can't do what you were doing anymore and then you can't do anything else, but you plan ahead for that, look ahead to that date, think what new skills you will need, what transitions you want to be able to make, because there's an awful lot of jobs that older people are better at. And it may well be that we're moving to a world where we need a lot of care jobs and all of that, and many of the skills that older people have might be just right for those jobs, but how do we transition people into them? So I guess my bottom line is, if we draw charts that show the over 65s and the under 65s, those ratios look appalling. If we regard anyone over 65 as a sort of drain on the state and under 65 as a contributor, we're not understanding what's going on. For me, we pay for a welfare state by reducing demand and increasing supply, and that means harnessing the skills of older workers, enabling and equipping people to fulfil what they want to do for much longer. They can put in for longer, they're still going to be drawing out for longer, and we all win. And there aren't many public policy areas in which we all win. I think this is one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Well, that's a difficult one to follow, because I agree with everything. I was sort of hoping I might be able to make up some reason why I disagree with Steve, but not at all. I think this focus on pension ages is terribly important. Part of it, I think, reflects the lack of focus that Steve described. I think may reflect a change in view as one gets older. I've also reached the grand age of 50. You look surprised, Steve. But we were interviewing, as we do every year, young people at the IFS for jobs last year. We were asking about savings and other economicsy things, which is how we select people. And one of the young things there responded something along the lines of, well, when you reach late to middle age, say 50, I didn't get the job. But I think that's part of the sort of sense of the difficulty we all have imagining reaching late middle age. I think if we're thinking about paying for the welfare state going forward, it's first of all really important to understand what it is that the welfare state is doing and how that's changing. Now, we're paying for pensions. The biggest part of the welfare state, the biggest individual part by far actually, is the health service, over 120 billion a year. But if you actually put the health service and social care and disability benefits together, you're looking at about 220 billion. So more than a third of the wealth of the whole state is just dealing with sick people in one way or another. And then you put 120 billion or so of benefits for pensioners on top of that, and about half of the whole state, not half of the welfare, half of everything that public spending does is for the old and the sick in one way or another. That's the core of the welfare state. And the worry going forward is particularly around the health service. So if you look at the latest OBR projections about where spending on health might go, their view is it might rise from something like 8% of national income now, this health and social care, to something like 14 or 15% of national income within the next 50 years, given demographic change and given that we know that we have never kept pace with economy-wide productivity within the health service. That's an extra 100 billion or so, at least, on health over that period. So how you pay for that is a really big question, and it's something that we're facing at the moment. So we put out our green budget earlier this week in conjunction with the ICAW, I should say, given where we are speaking now, where we showed, I think, two really rather important aspects of where we're going here. First is that the welfare state is changing. I talked about sickness benefits in terms of that being a large chunk of spending, 25 billion just on the working age population getting sickness and disability benefits. That's been increasing over time. Government thought 4 years ago that that would have fallen over the last 4 years. It's actually increased really significantly. So government control on that is really difficult. Second thing is that the people getting it are changing dramatically. 20 years ago, sickness and disability benefits were essentially something that men over the age of 55 got. There was a period when a quarter of all men, not just a quarter of men out of work, but a quarter of all men between age 60 and 64 were on incapacity benefits. That's no longer true. Part of the huge success of recent reforms is that number has come down a lot. But the overall numbers have not come down. Why is that? Because sickness benefits, which were benefits for the old, are now benefits for the poorly educated. So we're in this extraordinary situation now where if you're 30 and poorly educated, you're twice as likely to be out of work on incapacity benefits than if you're 60 and well educated. So one of the things that the welfare state is increasingly doing, and it's not just through sickness benefits, is supporting the poorly educated as well as the old and the sick. And that's one thing that if we're going to think about paying for the welfare state. We need to get into a world in which everybody can get into work, everybody has the chance to be healthy. And a lot of that increases in mental, and a lot of those problems with mental illness. And the role of the welfare state in supporting those with mental illness is clearly one that has changed and grown over time. And the second important point about the paying for the welfare state, if we're looking beyond pensions, is what is it doing for everyone else of below pension age? We had a big increase in the generosity of benefits, particularly for families with children under the last Labour government, and despite some of the rowing back from that, we will still have a system which is much more generous than it was in 1997, even when we get through all of the cuts by the end of this Parliament. But overall, spending on welfare benefits to the under-state pension age is now no higher than it was in 1990 if you take it as a fraction of national income. So we've controlled that spending really to a remarkable extent, and we haven't controlled it by reducing the numbers who are entitled to these benefits on the whole. We've controlled it by keeping the level of the benefits down. So one of the problems of the welfare state going forward is we've still got lots of people on sickness benefits, but they're worth a lot less relative to earnings, a lot less relative to earnings than they were 20 or 30 years ago. The people on job seekers allowance worth a lot less relative to earnings than it was 20 or 30 years ago. Housing benefit is the other big part of the working age welfare system. Whilst we're spending an awful lot more on it, it's not paying all of your rent in the way that it used to do. So how do we move out? How do we move forward? So what are the challenges moving forward? Well, the challenges moving forward are partly spending on pensions, but actually I think that's the smallest of our problems, because actually we don't have a massively generous state pension system, and with increases in pension age, that's an extra % or so of GDP over the next 20 years. We can do that if we want. Secondly, we've got the health service, huge potential increases. And thirdly, what we've got for working age people is a problem of lack of employment opportunities for those who are poorly educated and very low levels of benefits, particularly for people who don't have children. In the end, I don't think we're going to have too much choice, other than part of the answer to that being some increase in tax. You cannot pay the NHS as we have come to know it, given what we know about what's going to happen to demography, unless you're willing to increase taxation or radically change, I mean radically change the way we fund the health service. And to be honest, whatever the case may or may not be, I don't see much discussion or appetite for that. Increasing state pension age is clearly going to be absolutely vital. Increasing the opportunities for people with low education is going to be absolutely vital. And the last thing I'll say is, what I don't think we can reasonably expect to happen now for people who are in their 20s and 30s and 40s, I don't think we can ask them to carry on as they are today, funding the health service and the occupational pensions and the state pensions of those who are currently old, and ask them to do a great deal more to support themselves later on. Because this is a generation that's already losing a lot in terms of transfers from it to the older generation. It's not building up its own wealth in housing because it can't. It's getting 0% interest on its savings, so it can't build up its own resources. I don't think there is an answer which says that the current generation of young people are going to have to pay an awful lot more for their own support. That might have been possible 20 years ago. I think it's much harder now than it was.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, before I start, I wanted to check if there are any DWP civil servants in the room. Go on, out yourself, hand up. One. Could somebody please plug her ears or somehow remove her from the vicinity, because otherwise I won't be able to be as open with you as I would like. That said, I presume the entire thing will go on the internet, but I will never look at it and therefore I won't worry about it. But you know, I'm the Chief Executive of a trade association, one of those insider organisations that works with government, and as I do so, more and more slowly go mad. And I know there's going to be others of you here in a very similar situation. First thing to say, I suppose, is that out-of-work unemployment benefits are not a big issue when we look at the welfare bill in this country. You have Paul and Steve talk about the range of benefits there are out there. And the welfare bill is about 217 billion, something along those lines, 15, 16. The big ticket items are pensions, it's housing benefit, it's the tax credit system, obviously being rolled into UC, etc., and disability benefits. For unemployment benefits proper, about 2.4 billion, really small against that big pot overall. So under those circumstances, it's maybe not surprising that what the government is doing is focusing on some of the bigger areas of spending. One of them, as Paul has said, is disability benefits. So the disability benefit bill is around 37, 38 billion, so that is huge and has been static for a long time. The other thing they've got their eyes on, of course, is the fact that we have so many people in low-paid, unproductive or low productivity jobs. And we know that as a country, we need to move people into better jobs, paying more money. And therefore, big focus on skills and investment in that area. However, I would argue, maybe unsurprisingly, that I think the government is underestimating the costs of unemployment to this country. One of my favourite moments as Chief Executive in the last few years was at our national conference, which was 2 years ago, when the then employment minister stood up and announced that long-term unemployment had been solved. Now, it was an interesting audience to announce that to, I have to say. People working all over the country. You go to many northern towns, you go to many wards in the south of England, there is long-term unemployment. There is intergenerational employment. And the costs of that are not just in the benefit bill for these people, it is lost tax revenue and it's public service spend generally. But of course, as a government, and if you're the DWP, you're more likely to focus on the benefit element of it than those cross-cutting wicked issues and the overall cost to society of those people not being in work. Truth is, however, that Labour participation is actually high. I think it's the highest since 1971, which is the year I was born. So you now have 3 out of 4 speakers out their age to you. And of course there's panel, so challenge to number 4. But you scratch under the surface, and of course we've got a lot of underemployment, we've got insecure employment, we've got low-paid employment, let alone the fact that I'm expecting to work to at least 75 or 80 before I can think about retirement. And my kids are never leaving home, so all good there. So government, we know, is, I think, putting their faith in 2 big things. First of all, universal credit being a game changer. It's all this marvellous public management stuff that if you give people, the correct financial incentives and perfect information, being rational creatures, they're going to make a rational choice and get themselves into work. Now, a lot of today, by the sounds of things, has been about behaviour and people. And actually, people are quite complicated. And just getting the financial incentives right, we haven't done that properly yet with UC, actually isn't going to incentivise enough people for that to be a game changer. The other thing that I think that the government is banking on, and actually this new set of DWP ministers are less dogmatic about this, is that actually the labour market is going to continue at a good rate. Now, labour market participation is high, but I think, in fact, we don't understand quite enough about why that is. We think it's something to do with the flexibility in our labour market. Employers responded in a very different way during the last recession, but there's still a lot of scratching of heads amongst the economists out there about why that might have happened. So, government, as far as I can see, is in the midst of making 3 big mistakes. One of them is actually not putting enough emphasis on unemployment generally. They think there's a peace dividend. You can invest less in getting people back to work because overall it looks all right. The second mistake, I think, is actually to row back from what has been one of the most interesting public service reforms, which was the outsourced employment support market. Charlie referred it to welfare to work early on. That's actually a bit of a misnomer because there's a whole range of ways in which we help young people, unemployed people, get into work and stay there and to progress. So employment support is a better terminology there. And I've had a ringside seat over the last few years of that DWP-led experiment. And it started in '97, really, in a big way, with the Labour government reforms. It was escalated at a scale during the recession, the coalition government, etc. And is probably one of the most interesting and sophisticated public sector experiments we've had in this country, if not the world. It wasn't perfect. A lot of it was about poor market management. For instance, if we take the work programme as an example, its performance targets were set on growth in 2012 of 2.6%, and actually we ended up in recession, and performance targets weren't adjusted. So there's quite a lot of things that didn't go as well as expected, and that was about marketing, managing markets. Government is going to be disinvesting in that area at scale over the next few years. Now, a range of implications there. One of them is that the much heralded target from government to halve the disability employment gap is not going to be met. Secondly, it means that an important market in organisations, many of whom are charities, some of whom now operate globally, will fall away to some extent. Which means that if the government does end up moving towards an economic downturn, the labour market weakens, they won't be able to put in place that sort of support in the way that they might wish. The third mistake I think the government is in the process of making is going to be overburdening Job Centre Plus. Now, labour exchanges have been around really since Churchill, and they're a good part of our welfare infrastructure. They're often overlooked because unless you're unemployed, you don't tend to go near them. So you probably won't know what they've got on their plate going forward. They're going to be rolling out universal credit, doing that already. They're going to be supporting all job seekers, or most job seekers, for the first 2 years of their benefit claim. So the principle of earlier intervention by specialists is being lost. Job Centre Plus is going to be running an in-work progression service. So if you're earning, say, £25,000 a year, you want to increase your skills, you want to go up the career ladder, you're supposed to go to Job Centre Plus for advice. Now, I don't think a lot of people think JCP is where you go for that advice. It's also going to be rolling out a new thing called the youth obligation for youngsters, and it's also going to be providing career advice in schools. Now, call me prejudiced, but I do not necessarily want my kids at their schools getting their careers advice from Job Centre Plus, just about the local labour market. I would want them to get good independent advice which actually is aspirational and tells them about careers and professions across the entirety of the UK and maybe overseas. The other thing which has fallen away is this idea of the Dell-Amy switch, and I'm taking for granted, because you are an informed reform audience, that you will all understand those acronyms. If not, talk to Steve and he will be able to explain afterwards. So I just wanted to share a bit of thinking about why this direction of travel is being pursued at the moment by government. And this really plays back to the last panel session. And it's been really interesting, being Chief Executive of Trade Association, which is in and out of government departments all the time. First of all, I think there's been a real issue of political leadership. I'm on my 5th employment minister in 5 years. I'm on my 6th disability minister in 5 years. I'm on my 5th chief officer, SRO, in 5 years. And actually, more institutional memory sits with me and the sector than it does within DWP. And I know this, working with the NAO over the last couple of inquiries, and we knew more than the civil servants. There's also the cross-departmental issues. So Treasury gets information from us, they don't get from DWP. I'm telling you all the secrets now, aren't I? And again, you get this situation where they have great policy intent and the commercial process then comes in and scuppers it. So it's a great case study in where things just seem to go wrong. I'm not entirely certain whether I've answered the questions about how we're actually going to pay for the welfare state, but I'm pretty damn certain that part of the answer is making sure that we get more people into better quality jobs for longer. We want people to want to work. We want there to be the opportunities for them. Government cannot do that alone. And actually, we've got a whole range of organisations out there who are experts. So my argument would be the government should use them.
hopefully not too bad a substitution, as I've been knocking around the public finances for a little while, and before the Institute I had 10 years in central government, government chief accountant, and I also worked in the public spending group at the Treasury. So, having started my career in the private sector, I can do a little bit of contrast and compare. Because government's good at many things, I'm not sure efficiency and reform are things I'd put on the list. But government manages a very challenging set of stakeholders, priorities, and in many ways it does have a tougher job than large commercial concerns in trying to do this. But I still think it would benefit a little more than it currently does from starting to think in a little more of a business-like way, particularly in tackling some of the challenges we've been hearing about. And my goodness me, there are challenges. In some ways, I'm surprised there isn't more public debate about this, because we watch the ship of public spending gradually career into the sandbank of low economic growth. And everybody's hoping the tide is going to come in and lift it off, and we're going to get a bit more growth in the economy as well, because that really is what's killing the public finances at the moment. Government has held down public spending reasonably effectively for the last 6 or 7 years, as Paul was discussing as we were talking about the Green Budget on Tuesday. But it's storing up pressures. It's storing up considerable pressures in the demographics of an ageing population, in the healthcare. We spend about 53% actually of total managed expenditure on looking after the wealthy and the elderly. Did I say wealthy? Sorry, that was Freudian. The ill and the elderly. And we heard a little bit about reforms and efficiency savings, and I think 3.3 billion was the figure. And that sounds like a lot of money, but it's actually about 0.4% of what the government spends, total managed expenditure. And when you're running an annual deficit, well, I think it was 15-16, it was about 76 billion. 16-17, it's on track with the changes in the autumn statement to be about 68 billion, making savings of sort of 3.5, 4 billion are not going to cut it. They're not actually, it all helps, but it's not going to lead us to a point of sustainability where we can afford social care to look after the elderly, where we can afford our expectations with respect to healthcare in this country, which quite frankly, by the way, we spend about roughly the OECD average on healthcare. We get slightly below OECD average outcomes. So it's not like it's lavish. It's about okay. And I think, what would I do as a professional accountant? Well, I do a couple of things. On the one hand, I look at the money in, the money out, and I see what I could do about that. In terms of the money in, we borrow more. The problem is that's not actually a solution. That's just deferring the problem and actually, to some extent, exacerbating it. The liabilities of government, if you include what we put in the accounts rather than the fiscal numbers, about 3.6 trillion now, and we have, as you might expect, quite a big interest bill. That interest bill at the moment is actually very low because we have, as everybody knows, historically low interest rates. It only takes a relatively small increase in underlying interest rates, and quite a lot of our public debt, by the way, is on variable rates, thanks to a little thing called QE, where the Bank of England has essentially done an interest rate swap from long-dated fixed-rate gilts to variable rate bank deposits. Quite a lot of our debt, actually a lot more than most other major economies, is also index-linked, so we've got a bit of exposure to inflation as well. It's been 1995 since we last did a proper review of our treasury management strategy in this country. As Vernon said earlier, quite a lot has happened. Maybe it's time we had to think about our exposure because I tell you what, if inflation goes up a couple of percentage points and interest rates go up a percentage point, that's going to have quite a bigger effect on the public finances than 3.5 billion of efficiency savings. That's really going to start to eat into public spending. So we need to think a little bit about how we manage that exposure. In terms of revenue in, well, the government has actually quietly been upping the tax take. Overall, it's getting up it's gone from about 37.5% to about 38% of GDP, which I think the long run average is about 36%. And I think, as Paul said last week, it's now at the highest level of the tax burden since about 1985-86. So, you know, taxes have been creeping up. The problem is, if you tax an economy, even a little more, that's only growing slowly, you probably aren't going to raise enough money to catch up with your growing expenses driven by demographics. So, you know, you maybe look at money out. What we just had 7 years, really, I suppose, 6-7 years of austerity policies. We've held down expenditure in the big demand areas. We haven't really cut it. But the areas of government that have absorbed the austerity measures, which is everything else really, other than defence and overseas development assistance, so justice, justice, energy, transport, home office, environment, have borne very significant cuts, 40-50%. While I'm sure automation and technology will help them continue to make efficiencies in some respect, I think the reality is there's only so much further you can go in that domain. So maybe rather than thinking about cutting expenditure on the things that actually make us have a functioning state, like the rule of law and being able to walk the streets safely and knowing that when you turn the switch, power will flow and water will come out of the tap when you turn the faucet. Maybe it's time to think a little bit about how we spend the money. I'm very struck by the fact, and partly from my time in Treasury, that our health system is very much biased towards acute hospital care and less towards prevention. And I'm also struck that when you do a bit of comparative analysis, looking at other health systems around the world, the balance sometimes seems to be shifted more towards primary care and prevention. And some of these societies seem to be getting better outcomes for similar amounts of money. Finland, for example, is one. I think the Southern Irish did quite well. And we need to get a bit more of that sort of how we spend the money thinking into what government does. There are other examples as well. You know, certainly we're going to have to think about what it means to work if we're going to all live a lot longer, and when we should retire, and how we should work, and how we continue to contribute to society, contribute to the economy, if we're able to be economically active. You know, we've heard a lot today as well about efficiency, reform, structure of government. And I must admit, I mean, I have a bit of a reflection on this, having worked both in large businesses and in a couple of government departments, including the Treasury. And I very much come away in enormous agreement with Bernard Jenkin that the Treasury and government generally doesn't do financial management particularly well. It does apportioning out money at the aggregate level if you're Treasury, but it doesn't often show a huge amount of interest in how the money is spent and what it got for the money. And that, I think, is something that would bear a lot more scrutiny. I think you would expect me to say this as well. I think it could benefit from quite a good deal more professionalism. I remember, and I'll leave you with this thought, the standing joke when I was in Whitehall was the problem with Treasury was there were 2,000 economists and only 20 accountants. Actually, when I got there were only about 20 economists as well. And most of the guys there are policy people, generalists. And I think the Northcote Trevelyan model was great when it was created, when the business of government was a lot simpler. The business of government has got enormously more complicated. And I think the truth is the civil service has just got to man up and professionalise and start to get in the hard commercial business IT skills, and not just at the comparatively junior levels, but it's got to get in the people with those skills at high level, and then it's got to empower them and allow them to actually get on and deliver a job, as opposed to hamstringing them and keeping them in their functional disciplines. Thank you very much.